So during my warm-up lap, I want to talk you through what Tuesdays again are about, my specific workout for today as I'm running. And when I'm doing a warm-up run, the intensity is gear one, meaning I can hold a conversation as I'm going to do now. That's how hard I'm working. If I'm going too hard, I'm only going to be able to get a couple words out between breaths, so I'm not trying to do that. Here I'm focusing on syncing up my arms and my legs. My forearms are like saws, going forward and back. And so 4 days a week we're running. Tuesdays and Thursdays are interval days. Going back to the gears, gear one, gear two, gear three. Today is going between gear one and gear two. And so again, talk about the different ways we can delineate what gears you're in. But essentially today, we're going a little bit more uncomfortable, a little bit faster than something that we could hold for long periods of time. And we're going back and forth. Instead of walking, we're doing an active recovery. So we're gonna pull back. And so the point of this is to improve your lactate threshold. It's gonna be your steady state running, your cruise control, so to speak, will get faster. And so active recoveries, let's say the ratio like today is 1-to-1. So equal parts work and active recovery. Some days it's going to be more active recovery than work, and some days it's going to be less. So knowing how hard you work depends on the intervals. So if I'm at an advantage or disadvantage, that's going to change the level of intensity of my gear two. Again, don't get too caught up on the paces, it's a feeling. And so the method to the madness is Sundays is the long run Sundays. The time it takes to run that run, which is time-based, this week is 45 minutes. What this is gonna do is these Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're switching it up. We're doing around that same duration of time. We're just splitting it up between different speeds or different paces or different intensities. So it's cool to see how far do you get in 45 minutes on Sundays versus Tuesdays when you're going from a run to an active recovery. As soon as you pull back, it takes time to feel good again, to feel normal. So as soon as you have that minute of gear two, you pull back on your intensity to gear one, it's not gonna happen right away immediately that you'll feel like, this is recovery. But in your mind, it's recover. And keeping efficiency at the forefront of your brain and allowing your heart rate to come down. Tuesdays, there's a longer run after. Each week it gets more and more to get to that total time of the long run. And there's a reason why it's after. We're trying to see how close can we get to race pace or Sunday long runs when it's after doing all these intervals. And then on Thursdays, it's a run before and after, where we're going from gear three to a walk. And we'll say 10-minute run before, 10-minute run after. And so that's also, it's all mental, but then it's like you're in the race, you've got 20 minutes left and you're struggling and you're like, wait, I can do this. I've been here before. I've done all these intervals in the past and been able to run for 20 minutes close to my race pace. I've got this. It helps to give you some confidence, but also literally train your body from a cardiorespiratory, cardiopulmonary standpoint to be ready for race pace. And each week you'll see your distance covered in that allotted time. You'll start to get further, meaning your pace will get better and you'll get faster. And mentally knowing I'm gonna run for 45 minutes as far as I can go versus running 5 miles, it just sits better for time, and you can work on keeping pace and efficiency. It all boils back to efficiency. So I'll check in with you guys after this. Today is gonna be a 1-to-1 ratio of gear one to gear two for 1 minute and 1 minute, followed by a 15-minute gear one run. I'll see how far I can go. Okay, let's break this down, the after. So again, this is Tuesday, where the focus is on going between gears two and gear one. It was 15 rounds, a 1-to-1 ratio. And you can see over that course of the entire workout, 15 rounds plus a 2-minute walk plus a 15-minute run for distance. This is what we got. In 47 minutes total, went 5.95 miles. The pace was 7:55. So let's look at some of the data. Let's break it down. So you can see here that when it says run, that's the gear 2. When it says rest, that's actually the active recovery. That's going back to gear 1. So what we see, what our goal is trying to be consistent. And so you can see I was pretty consistent in the beginning. 6:31 pace for the first minute, and then 7:35, and then 6:34, 7:42. So you see it stays pretty consistent, and then I hit a wall where it went from 6:49 to 7:22, and where the gear 1 was all the way up to 7:52. And so we can see with time, what I start to think about mentally towards the end when I'm starting to get tired is just a simple dichotomous, I'm either trying to go harder or trying to recover. So for example, if I just got done with a recovery, a gear 1, and I know I'm switching to a gear 2, my only thought is go further, just beat the last time. And that's enough to cause a spark of an increase in intensity, so you'll increase your speed. So you can see for the final one, for round 15, for gear 2, it was my fastest one of a 6:19. After that was a 3-minute walk. That's where I'm prepping up for the run for distance. For 15 minutes, I'm trying to see how far can I go. And so let's look at the heart rate response. The red is the heart rate, and on the side, the left side, is the pace. So we can see on these days, it's not about the peaks and valleys like Thursdays where it's going gear 3 and then walking. So we'll see these greater amounts of spikes up and down. So ideally on these days, it's mini mounds, let's call it. And so you can see it was pretty consistent in the beginning where I was going up and down where the pace was staying around the same. And the heart rate response though started to go up. And so you can see as it starts creeping up, there's an inverse relationship where my pace started to go down. But then in that 3-minute walk of after those 15 rounds of the 1-to-1 ratio of gear 1 to gear 2, it allowed my heart rate to come down enough to be ready for that run for distance. And so take a look at the 15-minute run for distance after the walk. What can you see? You can see my heart rate slowly goes up. And that's my thought process, is I'm trying to very slowly increase my intensity over the course of that 15 minutes, knowing I've only got 15 minutes. And you can see my heart rate response is going up, and ideally we want the pace to be getting faster as well. So for me, I like these days because in my mind, when I have that going back to gear 1, the active recovery, it feels like mentally I know it's getting easier. It's going to be easier, or I know I'm going to recover. It doesn't feel like that right away. It might be 30 seconds into that 1 minute of gear 1 where your heart rate starts to slowly come down, but knowing it's going to get better, it's going to go down, and breaking it up in those intervals, it goes by a lot faster. And what's even cooler to see is with time, that gear 1, I call it like your superpower. Someone's looking at you running, you may be keeping up with the same pace as somebody else, but you're actually recovering. Your heart rate is going down, whereas theirs might be going up. So having that go-to switch to pull back, allow the heart rate to go back down, and then increase, for me, mentally, it works a lot better. And what you can see then is we start to compare what was my pace on these days versus on long run Sundays. And we're going to see what is the difference. So hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to ask me any questions about this, but I wanted to give you guys a representation of how an actual session, run, and a reflection works.